Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 78. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Today's guest, this is, he came to me from the Clausen family. So this will be a fun conversation. I know the name. The name's been in Calgary for a long time. So this will be a fun one for me just because I've known about everything that's been going on with you and everything else. So this will be a fun one. So please name and who you are.
Okay. My name is Peter Smed. I am a lifelong Calgarian. Spent a little time away, but grew up here with a big family, 6 of us. Been in and out of the several different types of businesses. We're all entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And currently I just celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Oasis Wellness Centre Spa, which is my baby, I guess. Really proud of what we've been able to do.
Crazy. I didn't know you were born and raised here.
Yeah. I was born at Holy Cross Hospital.
No way.
Said my dad was famous. He was a little bit of a workaholic. So my mom's water would break at night. She'd lie there quietly. And in the morning, he would take her to the hospital. And then he'd go to work and he'd come home and he'd have a son or a daughter and they'd have a name.
Just keep going.
And she'd go cook them dinner probably. Who knows? It was a different time.
Crazy. So the gist of the show is I like the guests to kind of go back as far as they want to go. You know, now we know where you grew up. So how you grew up, what inspired you, you know, how your family kind of pushed you along or didn't push you along. So just take it back as far as you want to go. And then I'll kind of drag you along to, you know, how you started Oasis, going through your number of businesses, and we'll just kind of get to where we are today. So take it back.
Yeah. So we grew up in Kingsland, actually. Sort of most of my family went to Kingsland Elementary. We went to Woodman, Henry Wisewood. So we were all alumni. So I was the last of 6 kids going through that program.
Youngest?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of 6. And like I said, we grew up, my dad and my mom had immigrated with 3 of my brothers, 2 of my brothers and 1 of my sisters when before I was born in 1952. And they came to Calgary. They were actually on their way to Rimbey because there were some Danish people there that had moved. And they were at the train station in Calgary. My dad went for a walk and he walked into a cabinet shop. And the cabinet shop was called KP Nielsen. And in the Danish spelling, it's always S-E-N. So he figured maybe this guy might be Danish. And sure enough, Christian Peter Nielsen asked my dad, you know, what are you doing? I was like, we're going to Rimbey. And he goes, where's your family? And he says, well, they're at the train station. And he said, well, then you better start tomorrow. And he hired my dad. They went to the train station, picked up my family, put them up at his house until they found a place to live. And I think 10, 15 years later, my dad bought his business from him. And that's how the Smed furniture family started. That's sort of how our business went. Kind of crazy.
It's like a movie.
It's unbelievable. They had 3 kids, really no money. Mm-hmm. They had 3 kids under the age of 6. And they just figured there was something more. And Denmark's a good place. As you know, everyone seems to be happy there.
Yep.
But there was a bunch of Danes who saw North America as the land of opportunity. And so it just, like I said, worked hard.
Yep.
And was a cabinet maker, actually built coffins in the war. So Denmark was taken over in about 24 hours by Germany during the Second World War. And my dad was young then, maybe 15 or something. Mm-hmm. So he was doing little stuff like that. And
crazy.
Ultimately, they ended up here.
Do you, for that to all play out, you know, for all these things for all these random things to happen to actually you and I to be sitting here, it's like it shouldn't happen.
Well, yeah, it was kind of interesting because actually it was on last Tuesday. We have 2 staff meetings a year. There's about 60 of us at the spa. And we were kind of doing just, I guess, appreciations and gratitude for the 25 years, reminiscing a bit. And I had 2 employees with 10-year awards, 1 with 15 and 1 with 20, all on Tuesday. So they all came due now. And including me, I'm 25. That was 80 years of legacy there. And I think what came out as the most common theme was of our 60 people, I would say probably 45 are immigrants. And I realized that someone gave my dad and my mom a lift and gave them a chance. Mm-hmm. And I realized we've kind of been paying it back. We just we've always been open to the idea of having other people come and help us do our business. And there's talented people from all over the world, and it's an opportunity for us to sort of have this nice, diverse community, right?
Was it a conscious decision to go down that path, or is it just now that you're looking back, you're like, holy?
It just occurred. I was doing inventory, and it was like I said, we did this other workshop with our team. We did this vision board and all that, and suddenly I looked around the room and I went, oh my God, this is what my dad did. My dad always hired, back then in the furniture industry, everyone was coming from Vietnam and China and Europe, and that's where the craftsmen came from. And so, of course, most of his employees were also immigrants. And I didn't realize it, but probably unconsciously, because my family had been given so many opportunities and a hand up, probably just felt like exactly the right thing to do. Right. So
it makes a lot of sense. So walk me through what the youngest of 6 looks like in Calgary, what you're up to and what kind of, what you're doing.
Well, they're all, like I said, they're all entrepreneurs. No one's been an employee for anyone, hardly at all in their life. My only brother that's considered the black sheep is a Presbyterian minister. Mogens runs his own business. Ola runs his own business. Christine ran her own business. Susan ran her own business. John is a minister. And then, so the idea of working for others, I guess, I don't know, maybe we're a little headstrong and probably really opinionated and probably thought we could do it better. Might not be true. It hasn't always played out that way. But I think just really love the opportunity to get out in front and run the business the way we want. So I said, my family's had lots of ups and downs and good times and bad times in business, but I had the good fortune of being the last. So I got to watch it all play out. And I learned a ton of lessons about what success looked like. Because just winning in business and making money is not enough to sort of fill your bucket. And I've had the good fortune to watch them, and I've learned how to build a business that not only is successful, but is full of the kind of people I like to be around. We conduct ourselves in a way that I'm proud of and that I like to be part of. You know, we're not shrewd. We're not all worried about all of the things that sometimes business gets to be about. We're more worried about taking care of our people, helping them build good careers, and making sure our customers feel the same, like they're going to have a great experience because the people that are there doing it just love what they're doing. And the opportunity to help people is pretty rich. Pretty rich.
When you're growing up really young, you know, is your dad or your mom talking about being an entrepreneur? Is it around? Is it a discussion? Or are you just kind of taking things in at a young age?
Well, you sort of get indoctrinated. So I worked every summer of my life from the age of 6. I was to work for 8 weeks of summer, and I got 2 weeks off. I got paid 25 cents an hour at the age of 6, and at the end of the summer, I think I bought myself a new soccer ball or something, right? And then every year there would be something. Maybe I would gradually work up. So I worked in the finishing shop. My dad had a cabinet making shop. So I learned the trade, but I wasn't really good at it. I wasn't a craftsman. My hands, that's just not how I work. But I really appreciated the craftsman. And so we just always were taught that hard work was the foundation of everything. And we worked, probably when I graduated university, I worked with my brother's company, and I moved to Boston, Vancouver, and probably for 10 years, I worked 70, 80 hours a week just because that was the formula. Just if we outwork them, we'll beat them. And then finally that fell through. I had one of my first midlife crises, and I realized, you know, just working harder than someone's not really that compelling. I'd rather work smarter and find a way to do what we do really well in 30 hours a week.
So junior high school, is anything happening back then? Is it like, are you figuring anything out? Are you into sports? Are you into theater? What are you up to?
Yeah. So we were all, of course, given in that environment, really competitive. So
With
winning
each other, or
was
just with the world?
both. So the brothers were really hard on me. I got regularly put in my place. That was just how it ran. My sister would try and protect me a bit, but it didn't really work. But I played hockey. I played a lot of soccer and all that. I was probably overly competitive. It was super intense and important for me. And
Why?
just because I thought maybe I could get my parents' attention if I won. My brothers some of them were really good athletes. Some of them were just really smart. Some were, my sister, they all had these things, and my dad recognized those things. And as it turns out, my dad really didn't care about sports. My dad worked, so my mom was at all my games. And but anyway, I still love sports. I still play hockey today. I still play soccer. I ski a lot, and I love volleyball. So I still play sports. And growing up in Calgary, it was, going to the outdoor rink. My parents would tie up my skates on Kentish Drive and push me down the driveway, and I would skate over to the rink. And I would be there from 9 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. They had no idea where I was, right? Give me a little bit of money because there was a concession there where I could get a hot dog and a chocolate bar. And I'd spend that's where my weekends were, basically just trying to do as much outdoor stuff. We had a cabin in Sylvan Lake, so we did a lot of water skiing and a lot of summer stuff and hanging out at the fire there. So that's really Calgary for me. I think about it, has always been outdoorsy. I need to be outdoors. I go kind of buggy if I'm stuck inside. So I love that we can be out.
So after you get through high school, do you know what the program looks like? Are you supposed to go to post-secondary? Are you like looking at something specific?
Yeah. So my dad's company was called KP Manufacturing. My dad's name was Kai, and I'm Peter. And it was made very clear very early on that that's where I was headed. I was going to be his heir apparent or his partner or whatever.
Why is that? So if you have older brothers and sisters?
They all were sort of doing their own thing already. They decided my dad's company was too small. It couldn't be big enough. It wasn't ambitious enough.
Wasn't theirs.
It wasn't theirs, maybe. Who knows? So anyway, I remember I was the only one of my buddies who took Typing 10. I took every business course that was available throughout everything. I got a business degree at U of C. It was just all pre-planned, and I was really not, I don't even think anyone ever asked. And I don't think, I know for a fact, and I've thought about it recently, I never considered whether I could be a musician or an artist or do something cool. I was going to be in the furniture industry and be a businessman from the age of 6.
Which I find that fascinating.
It's infuriating.
I can't, I'm sure.
It's like when I realized, I thought, who would do that? I have children.
Imagine?
Who would put their kids on the rails at the age of 6 and just go, this is how it's playing out?
So you knew that from 6. So everything
with 100% certainty.
Every move you made, you're just like, it's part of the process. I'm like, did it feel like, now you're thinking about it, you're older and thinking about it, did it feel like you were getting gypped? Feel like you couldn't explore anything? You're like, or was it somewhat give you some confidence to be like, I have a path?
Well, I think I probably got sucked into it. So guess what happens if that's your focus? And at dinner time, everyone's talking about business and numbers and finance and all those things. Guess what I'm really good at, right? So eventually you're just comfortable with the language and like winning at business is like Monopoly. It's not that complicated. Enjoying it or creating something really compelling is hard, but just business, it's not rocket science. It generally isn't. A small business. Sure. I'm sure there's more complicated businesses than mine. But when I was young, I think I was just I wanted to be the best soccer player. I wanted to be the best hockey player. I was the captain on some teams. I wanted to be the best at business. I wanted to do all that stuff. And it never occurred to me until just in the last few years that all my buddies were skiing and going to concerts and doing all that stuff. I'm going to a concert every 2 or 3 weeks. I'm making up for it. And I missed out on some concerts. It bugs me that I won't get to see.
Yep.
But I'm trying to go back now and make up for that time and, make sure that I'm doing the things that I want to be doing, because work's one of them. But I work about 30 hours a week and I travel maybe 16 weeks a year.
Awesome.
It's pretty good.
That, what's caused you to start thinking about this in the last couple of years? What's been that trigger?
I've had lots of midlife crises. So eventually I got fired by my brother. Let's
go back. KP. So this is Kai Peter.
Yeah. Graduated university.
Yep.
I was still working. I was working with Smed at that time.
Smed was around. So when did Smed start?
Smed started just after National Energy Program, so 1982 or 83. I graduated 82 or 86. I always forget high school now. I'm chronologically challenged. Regardless, there's a big dark story in there. So when I was 18, my brothers had decided they were going to do their own thing. So they went out and got this massive loan with CIBC that my dad had to co-sign to buy this big factory.
Okay.
And then the National Energy Program hit. And CIBC called all the loans. So they went down and my dad went with them. And in that process, my dad had a heart attack and passed. All in the middle of that.
No way.
So again, my dad smoked. He ate potatoes and gravy and meat every day for lunch and dinner. He drank. But the stress didn't help. The stress didn't help. So now KP is gone because he's gone. And everything's kind of scrambling. We're looking at, we got to sell our house. We're going to get walked out by the bailiff. All those things are going on. That reality is ridiculous. And I'm 18 just kind of going, whoa.
Because you were at KP kind of doing your thing.
I was working with them and working with Mogan's company at the time too. Actually, that was when they were starting. Right around after that, they started Smed. And I did the bill of materials. I spent a summer doing that. And when I graduated university, I went to work for him, and I was sent to Boston for 2 years to work, set up the Northeast, develop customers. And when our product arrived, it was all modular furniture. No one knew how to put it together. So our job was to go out and train people and go to the site and work with people. And then I had a briefcase and a 50-pound toolbox. And I was
doing both.
Doing both, right? I'd have a suit and I'd have, work clothes. So I spent 2 years there. Really cool experience. I traveled 210 days a year.
Did you when they said you're going to go to Boston, were you up for the experience?
He said, we need someone in Boston. And so, yeah, cool. I thought, what an adventure, right?
Did you get any Bruins games? Did you take in sports?
I've seen a game in just about every stadium in Northeast United States.
No way.
So I saw the old Union Arena in Chicago, and we went to Hartford. I've been to Madison Square. We did all that. So whenever the Flames were around, we'd try and catch them. We were working a ton, but we did go to one. We went to one game in Boston, and my buddy was he's a Ukrainian guy from Calgary who's always a little on the edge, and we had gone out and bought this ridiculous leather-headed moose on a stick. And we brought Flames jerseys and this leather-headed moose to the Boston Bruins game. And in the first period, the Flames are playing well. It's back with Neuendijk and all the guys back then.
Like Vernon, Otto.
We were good.
Okay.
We were good.
Yep.
And so we scored, I think, 2 or 3 goals in the first period and a half. And every time we scored, my buddy would run down the stairs with the moose yelling. And you're in Boston. They don't take kindly to it at all. Finally, at the end of the second period, the usher came over and said, "You're on your own. We can't protect you anymore." So we had to chill it out. But we were in the washer with our jerseys. I mean, Boston's, it's a great place. They also like their team and they like winning. So we crushed them that day. That was good.
So you're in Boston for a couple of years, kind of setting up shop,
traveling around. Yeah.
So is it your business? Or you're working for your brothers?
I work for my brother.
Okay. So and you were just like, it's all the family business. I'm kind of groomed to do this.
Yeah, I don't even know where I thought that might lead. I think probably at some point people thought I might be his heir apparent or get involved. We were both in marketing and doing the presentations, and I was there for, again, chronologically challenged, maybe 9 years, maybe a little more. And in the end, I was working out of Calgary, overseeing 140 territories, right? It's just helping them develop and work with the factory and finding talent. And there was a big team of us, but it was, I mean, watching that company, when I started there, we did $1 million in the first year. And when it eventually sold, it was 167 million.
No way. What did it sell as? What was the?
Well, it was a little bit of so there was a hostile takeover. Oh, yeah. Someone tried to get them. And then White Knight came in at the last minute, and it was Hayworth, and they took out my brother's company.
What was your brother's company?
It was his. Sorry?
With the name of it?
Smed.
It was
Smed International.
Yeah, so okay.
And then, of course, he waited almost as long as his non-compete and started Dirt, which is Do It Right This Time. And then he got thrown out of Dirt by the board because he doesn't appreciate the board of directors very much. And they got into a dispute over the president. And so they bumped him. And he waited let's say he waited just because people might be listening. He waited as long as he could and started Falk Built, which is his company he's running now at the age of 75.
No way.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a fascinating, there's so many things happening. You're the youngest, and just being put in situations and just working hard and was there any vision of where you wanted to get to, or
I think it was false. It was false ego. Like, I think we were told, and my mom was always a proud woman, but she always said, you're a Smed, you can do it. You can do it better than others. Like, it's okay as long as you work as hard as you can, you'll do fine. You'll make it. And I've always believed that. It's when I was working with Smed, I was walking in doing presentations to the biggest architectural firms in the world and going in and meeting with the head of DuPont and presidents that are all getting paid millions and billions of dollars, and they're all smart as all get out. And I did meet some who were like, wow, that guy is clearly got it. But most of the time I felt like I could hold my own in that room. I felt like just the confidence, and just because I had been around it so much. I don't know if anyone had more exposure to business than I did. So in some ways, those are, my brother always likes to say, blue collar skill sets. He never cared much for academics. I didn't really use my BCom. It a lot of the stuff wasn't applicable in my world, but always felt confident in the business world that I could kind of bring value because I had experience and knowledge, and I had seen all these things play out, like all kinds of stuff. There's nothing more gut-wrenching and heartbreaking than a bankruptcy. But I can't tell you, it's the MBA to end all MBAs. You learn more in that than you do in 25 years of successful business, for sure. Right?
That not using your degree was just, you need to go to school, you need to just check that box and just have something.
I thought I was 18, ready to take on the world, and no one would take me serious.
Without it?
No, just I was too young. So then I went to school, and I was 21 with a degree, and no one took me serious. So it kind of played out the same way.
That internal confidence.
Yeah.
Family driven, like from your mom, or just being around a competitive driven family just kind of gives it.
Yeah, I think the healthy part of it is being around and having belief in yourself. And I mean, I've met a lot of executives over the years, and they all have therapists. They're all struggling with, really, how come I'm running a company with 50,000 employees? It's pretty big shoes. And I think part of you knows, yeah, you know what, I've got a lot of what it takes for this. And part of it, you just have to buy in and trust that you'll figure it out. But there's no way you feel like there's days where there's no way I was the right guy, or we made mistakes all the time, right? It's like, oh man, but that's kind of business too. So there isn't a perfect guy out there, I don't think. And, you know, some people might say, well, an MBA or the real academic guy who's super smart and all that. And, you know, there's a lot to be said for street skills too. You know, my brother always said, if we can get the competition in a dark alley, we have a better shot than most. And there's something to be said for just having good street sense.
It seems, I'm glad you're speaking this because it makes a lot of sense to me. When you're in front of these big CEOs, you know, and you have this internal confidence just to do it, it's not even cocky. It's just, you understand things, you're seeing things, you're hearing things, and it just makes sense to you.
Yeah, you know, like I said, I think probably when I was 18 or 21, cockiness and arrogance was in there. More.
I guess you have to be a little bit as a youngster. The youngest of...
Otherwise, the fear will crush you.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to pretend that it's not overwhelming. But like I said, I just think, I think that I always trust that I have a valuable perspective and an insight. I'm not really a numbers guy. I'm decent with numbers. I'm a feel person. I'm all running everything but like kinesthetically. So it's like, I can tell when my business is healthy and I can tell when it's not. I can tell when the employees are thriving. I can tell when they're not. And that's where I go. So if there's discomfort or I see some resistance or things just aren't flowing, it's like, okay, we got to go figure it out. And everyone goes, what do you mean? The numbers are fine. Everything's good. It's like, something's up, like something's coming and we got to get ahead of it, because that's really all you're doing. All you're doing is getting your people in a position to be successful and then get out of the way. And sometimes if you're not connected and if you're not in tune with what's going on, you know, out of all the people in the world, I think I'm probably the most socialist you've interviewed. And I had a union run like 20 years ago. I was just like shocked, but someone saw me as like a capitalist nightmare and got enough people that they got a contract. We had a vote. I mean, it got turned over, but still, that just reminded me at the time, like, how did I lose track of that many people that were all disgruntled or unhappy with something? So it's, you know, I think that's probably the biggest thing I notice in business that I judge harshly is people underestimate how important it is to have your people aligned with what you're up to. And they just think they can play the role. But if their heart's not in it and they're not genuinely feeling successful and rewarded for what they're doing, it just doesn't play out. It doesn't play out. And it'll eventually become the bane of your existence.
Yeah. The energy it takes to manage like that feel, like to manage almost by feel.
Yeah.
It's a different output from you. Like to be that in tune with people, to be like listening and watching all the time. And because there's with all these people, they have their own lives, they have all these things. So it's a lot of input to manage.
Yeah, and you know what? Not everybody wants. In our employee manual, it says, "Here's the game we're up to. We want to help you be successful and fulfilled and the best version of yourself you've ever been." That's what we're up to. Everything is here that you need for that, and we're open to all of it. But there's a catch. You've got to walk through the door. You've got to put yourself in the game, because we're not in the back halls dragging people out of their rooms to tell us about their woes in their life. Yeah. People, and the good thing about community and what I love about having a big community where we are is not everybody has to do it. It's 20% of people play the game and it works for everybody. I actually believe that I spent 30 years going in and out of workshops. I believe when I go to a workshop and I figure out something about me and clean up something about me, it instantly happens in my community. It happens in my family. It happens in my business.
Yeah.
And my coworkers, when they go do that work, and lots of them like to do yoga, do introspection, meditate, take care of themselves, do something that's sort of just to be more present and to sort of be more mindful. When they do that, the whole community starts to move along in that direction. And then once it sort of catches critical mass, then the whole thing, there's times where it's just flowing effortlessly and customers pick up on it. Right? It's really cool.
Yeah, that energy. Because I'm sure if you walk into your business and everyone's flowing in the right direction, the customer's like, wow, this feels good.
Yeah, some places you go to and you can tell the employees are not that happy and you almost feel bad. It's like, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm here.
That's right.
So let's walk it back. So your brother sold the business and then when does your path like start?
So just before the hostile takeover, I was in charge of 140 territories, and I would fly out to Dallas, and I would say to the rep, "What's going on? Mogens wants you to sell more. What sales calls can we make? What's going on?" And they said, "We don't have any time. The factory is doing such a poor job that they spend 80% of their day dealing with mistakes and errors and just hand-holding clients to make sure that they're not going to just lose it." Because the factory was, at that point, just got too big, too fast, and their execution was awful. So that back then we had a thing called Q orders, and we had $800,000 a month in Q orders. That means garbage. That was thrown away, fall off, wrong color, wrong material, wrong finish, ruined, whatever.
It's a big number.
That's a number, right?
Yeah,
and it's not just that number, because the company was big enough that maybe it could absorb it. It was the impact on the clients, because the clients, when you're buying furniture, all you want is for it to work.
Yeah.
It's not an important decision in your company. You just want it to work and show up on time. And we just took too long to get it right. So all the reps told me this, and I gathered the information, and I went back to the factory, and the factory said, "Oh, it's the sales reps. They suck. They send bad information and everything." And I said, "I don't know if that's the case." So I spent 3 months, and I took that $800,000 and I broke it down by department. I went to every department and interviewed everybody. And there was one guy in charge of all of that. And it wasn't his fault. He had been over promoted and was in charge of something there's no way he would know how to run.
Yep.
A big factory, right? So I found it. I broke it all down. I knew what shipping errors were made. I know what packaging errors. I know hardware. I knew veneering. I knew all of it. Finishing, sales reps, right? Sales reps were 4% of the 800,000. 96 occurred under this one guy. And I got enough people riled up because they were all frustrated. And I got a town hall with the entire company and the executive. And I ran an attempted coup. And I presented that story to the entire staff and the management. And I said, the only answer is he's got to go. Well, he was higher than me in the chart. And so the next day I was fired.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Who fires you?
My brother was away conveniently.
No way.
So a good buddy of mine fired me.
What does that even... Was that even in the realm of possibilities? Because you're doing your due diligence, you're figuring out numbers. You're like, here's the problem. I'm presenting the problem with numbers to back it up. Was it ever in the realm that you were going to get punted?
Well, see, there's the destructive part of the Smed personality is we don't just want it to change. We want to burn it down and make sure that it's publicly shamed. We didn't have the tact to do that in a way that everyone could save face and everything could happen.
Yep.
And
so instead of the town hall, it should have been like a one-on-one, like here's what's happening. You take it away.
Yeah. Maybe find another way to work it through. I'm not sure it ever would have gotten through. The company kind of lost its way a bit. And I mean, my brother might not agree, but we disagreed vehemently. When they went public, the whole focus became on the share price. And so nobody really wanted to talk about problems because that doesn't do anything for share price. And I think we just lost track of what my dad's company was and what I wanted to be part of. And so I probably just did it on purpose and blew it up for myself, probably knowing that's how it was going to end.
Which is interesting.
Because I wouldn't have quit.
Yeah. So when you knew that was potentially what was going to happen, did you have another plan? Had you been thinking about things? Has your head down and work and that's it?
No, I probably was deluded. I probably pretended they wouldn't do it. Like the joke used to be my mom would never let him, but it was a public company. They had to get rid of me. They either had to get rid of me or him. There's no way that could have coexisted. And like I said, I think for me, I knew my time there was done. And so that didn't make the transition any better because now I'm 29, having my first midlife crisis. So I'm now leaving my marriage. I'm leaving my house. I'm leaving my dog. And I'm a consultant. And I'm the worst consultant in the world because I can waste an entire day doing nothing. And I'm just not a self-starter. So I play team sports. If it was just up to me, I don't think I would get anywhere. So
it put you on a path. Like that was a moment in time where
it didn't. So it put me into depression. So I was Peter Smed of Smed, all this at that point, 23 years of my life as a business person and in furniture and in the family business and getting all kinds of recognition for that. And it was a huge part of who I was or what I thought I was. So I went into like a death spiral. I was depressed for 6 months and sleeping like 22 hours a day.
Whoa.
And just in the bottom, right? And just thinking, man, how far does this go? Like how deep, how bad can I feel? And finally one day I bounced and I felt the bottom and it was like, oh, okay, so that's it. I'm not worse today than I was yesterday. That's good news. That means there's hope. And then right then a buddy calls me and he says, oh, I've been doing these workshops. Maybe you want to come see an information session. So I went to an information session for Context. They do personal development retreats, like 3-day weekends and all that stuff. And you go in and figure out why your parents messed you up and why you're whatever you are and all the things you've done. And you get a chance to sort of process all that in bites, right? And I went to that and it was life-changing. It was the first time I had ever got to question, should I have been in business? Is there something I really want to do with my life? Not because my family wants me to do it or not because society wants me to do it, but is there something that I really want to do that's my choice? And that was like, holy cow, now I'm shot out of a cannon. I get all into these more workshops. I'm doing all this new agey stuff. And I start running into practitioners. So I'm getting reflexology and I'm getting myofascial release and I'm doing massage and I'm doing rebirthing and I'm doing hypnosis and I'm doing acupuncture. I'm taking it all on.
You're getting into it.
Trying to get to the root. Right? And clean out all the garbage that's kind of blocking me from committing to that maybe. So basically, and every time I would go see them, they're like, oh, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm a marketing guy or whatever. And they go, well, you want to help me? And I'm like, you can't afford me. Like, I can't justify working for you for an amount that you could justify.
Yep.
And so it just doesn't work. But almost to a man, they all just wanted more clients and they wanted to figure out. And ultimately that was the genesis of Oasis, which is, what if I put all of them in one place and built a big facility where all these practitioners who I thought were super talented and super valuable could all come. We would screen them and make sure that we had the right team.
Yep.
And then the customers would be able to access and find those people that are working out of their basement and second story. And that was where Oasis came from.
So crazy. It's so crazy because I don't know the story at all. So I'm hearing this. I'm just like, holy shit. When you go down that path to kind of, how do you phrase it? It's not self-help. It's like self-discovery.
Self-discovery and introspection and personal development.
Way different, growth. Right? Like, was there anybody in your world besides that one friend that invited you to that workshop?
My family was terrified of the idea. My family was terrified. I went to Mogan's after that. I went to one of the workshops, and one of the homeworks was to write a letter. So I had to write a letter to Mogan's saying, hey, you may not like this, but when Dad died, you're the oldest male. Who do you think I look to for whatever sage advice might look like as a father role?
Yep.
So I go.
So you wrote it.
I wrote it. I knew I couldn't speak it. So I wrote it, took it to him and read it in front of him and left him with it. And I could just tell he was terrified of the entire idea. And my sister comes to me. She works for him at the same time. I was helping. And she runs to me. She goes, what did you say to Mogan's? He thinks you want him to be your dad. I said, that's not what I said at all. But he was completely terrorized and still is to this day. We don't process emotion in our family, just the women. The men don't.
So what you're...
Now I do.
That's it, which is way different.
Now I know how. But it took me a long time.
When you say a long time, is it like a decade?
I've been at it. Yeah, you know what? I've been at it since I was 29. So almost 30 years.
Wow. And just this...
And not one every day or every week, but sometimes 2 or 3 years. Last year, I don't even know if I got one in, but I'm always looking for something.
And just this, just to stay connected to the idea and just like push forward.
Well, all that work, if you like, I got to the point where I read too many books and all the stuff, but at the end of the day, all that work, all it's doing is saying, inside of every human, there's this divine, perfect idea of what they want to be. It's an expression. Now, it may not be even career specific, but you may always just be a good communicator. You may be able to connect with people. That's a super cool skill set. And then you want to get yourself aligned. Okay, how can my work be like that? How can my life be like that? What kind of things would I want to do, right? And so basically, once you start to lay out what's important in your life, for me, I love diversity. I love being outdoors. I love leading. I like being at the front of the room. And then I also love being around when someone else gets it. It's fantastic when you have an employee and you think they're done and they're going to leave and their life's crumbling and they're miserable and it's bad and it's just, and somehow together you figure out a way through it and they become invaluable. And you've really made a difference. You've changed someone's life. They were going to leave their marriage. Who knows, right? They were going to go broke, all kinds of stuff. And somehow you go, there's a way through it. It doesn't have to be all dramatic and all, fatal. It can be, it's challenging, but if you want to do the work, there's a way through this to get to where you want to get. I find most people, when they try to get to where they want to get, they run into resistance. And then, it's hard because if you don't have the belief in yourself or the clarity of what you want, then it's easy to just sort of say, maybe I don't even want that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just pass. And then we end up doing something for 20 years of our life and it's the source of all of our misery.
Yeah.
Right?
When you, after you go down this, you start going down this path to learn things about yourself, does your friend circle, sphere of influence, like, does it get different? Do you start attracting a different set of people, or are you in the same circles and everyone's looking at you like, yeah, there's Peter just doing his thing? Like,
I would say sometimes when I first started, I was a little bit evangelical. So I was trying to convert everybody.
Because you were like, you were at the furthest,
this is so great.
You were at the furthest end, and now you're going like this way.
Yeah. Well, of course. So now I'm showing up. And like I said, I think for a lot of people, it was clear that they didn't think this was a slick idea.
Mm-hmm.
They like, great, do that. And it's woo-woo stuff and whatever. It won't amount to anything because in their world, it doesn't look like it.
They've never seen it or experienced it. So
no idea of the value.
Like,
no idea of the value of it. What could be valuable about being weak and vulnerable and emotional? Like, what good could come from that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think initially I was always like, I'd be reading you a quote right now from Deepak Chopra or some guy, and it would be all deep, not my stuff, just someone else's ideas. And I think probably the hardest part was for my wife and my children to, I got to give them credit because she married me 25 years ago almost. And she knows what she got into. Mm-hmm. And there's no question I'm different. I like to think I'm probably a better person than I was. But there's no guarantee that she wants to be part of that program. Mm-hmm. And so, even then my wife, she's done a few workshops. She happens to embody a lot of this. It just comes natural to her. She processes things so gracefully, and it's just frustrating to watch because it's not so simple for me. But we go out to workshops once in a while, and every time we go, she goes, "Can't we just fucking go to Vegas?" Right? So, mm-hmm. Anyway,
just to do something not so just like intense and just
right.
Vegas. So 25 years ago, people are asking you to kind of how, you're asking them like, how's business? You're like, I need to find more people. Can you work with me? And you're like, you're seeing this potential of bring it all under one roof. Was it crystal clear what you had to do, to turn on Oasis?
Well, I was evangelical. I had seen this crazy video, and it believed that there was an imminent change in the world coming.
What year is this?
What's that?
What year was it? Where you see this video?
25
years.
Okay,
25.
So literally, it was called Awakening 0 Point, and it actually just happened. Believe it or not, a version of it. So I don't know if you saw recently. They said the internal mantle of the Earth sort of stopped spinning in one direction and was now spinning in another direction. So that was kind of a metaphor, and it had to do with all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. It was profoundly connected to all kinds of things. And I was a zealot. I was out and about selling this as the reason to open a spa. And it wasn't even going to be a spa. It was going to be more of a wellness center, more Tai Chi and meditation and workshops and all that. And things were manifesting like crazy. It's like, this is all showing up. This is happening. I'm now in the flow, and it's coming. And I met what's now Starbucks used to be Sable Furniture. And I met with, I think, what was his name? One of the boys from Pattison or whatever. And I said, oh yeah, this is perfect space. I'll take it.
Where is it, sorry?
Where Starbucks is now was on 17th by Central Memorial. Or Western Canada.
Like right across the street from Trolley, right in the corner there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the space. I thought, this is amazing. It's happening. I've got people around me and we're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, oh man, this is it. I'm liberated at last, and it's happening for me. And then the next day he called me and he goes, you didn't get the lease. And I said, what do you mean I didn't get the lease? I got the lease. He goes, you didn't get the lease. We have a better offer from another person who's more, solid and bigger business. I said, no, I don't think that's right. I'm pretty sure I'm getting the space, because in my mind, I was certain. There was like, he thought I was ridiculous. He goes like, Peter, I'm trying to tell you, you don't get the lease. I said, I'm getting the lease. And when I hung up, I still said, I couldn't make sense of it in my head. So back into depression. So about only a few days this time, though, I had new tools. Mm-hmm. So I go into a death spiral again. And finally, my wife comes home and I'm watching Oprah for the nth time that week.
Like this is your depression. Like when you go down,
Yeah,
it's like you do nothing.
I just kind of
sit and
I hibernate.
Yeah.
And I just sat and I'm watching Oprah Winfrey, and my wife comes home. She goes, if I come home one more day and you're watching Oprah Winfrey, I am going to snap. Get out and do anything, something. I was like, oh God. And you don't like going out to the world when you tell me your dream's just been taken away. And when you're not feeling good about yourself, it's hard to want to reach out to the world.
Yep.
I picked up the phone and I called the safest person I knew. She was completely accepting of me no matter what. And it was an old friend, Joanna Miller, and she worked for COI at the time. They do flooring and furniture, and big Herman Miller dealer here anyway. And I said, I just want to come have a coffee. I need to move. Something's got to give. So I went and saw her and I told her my sad story, and she was great. And she listened and she said, well, we're quoting on a spa right now in Mount Royal Village. And I said, well, what do you mean? Oh yeah, there's a spa in Mount Royal Village and we just got the floor plans to do the carpet and the flooring. I said, well, do you know the guy? And she goes, I can get it. We called from her office and I called Keith Barnick and Brenda. They were the ones working on it. And I said, I think we need to meet. And we had lunch the next day. And by the end of lunch, I owned 33% of the Oasis.
No way.
Yeah. 20,000 feet in Mount Royal Village, 5 blocks from where my space was.
Crazy. One phone call of all the people in your world, you make one phone call, which actually connects the dots. And then there it is.
Well, and then they were building an Egyptian spa with the exact same. They loved workshops. They had a facilitator out of Kelowna they liked, and they were totally into this holistic world. And it was like they had already done the plans they had put together. They just needed some more money.
Yep.
And I had enough money to get in the game.
33.
And then 18 months later, or maybe a little more, maybe 36 months later, I bought them out.
No way.
Yeah, another coup.
The right coup this time?
This one worked.
How did that one play out?
Well, we thought we were awesome, right? So we opened the Oasis Spa, and we were ridiculous. So Swizzle Sticks was the biggest spa in town at that time. It was 1,500 feet. We were 23,000. We had no idea how ridiculous our model was and how expensive it was to run. We beat every revenue number we planned for the first 18 months and lost ridiculous amounts of money. It was because we kept counting gift certificate sales as revenue, but they're not, right? So it was kind of this false illusion. We had all this cash, but then eventually they start coming in.
Yeah.
And so we had a cash call. And my partners were a couple, and they didn't have the means.
Yep.
And I went back to my brother. I had done all the numbers. I ran the books, and I said, I need $500,000 for 6 months to get me to Christmas. And I'm going to use a chunk of that to buy out my partners because we had too many chiefs and we couldn't afford to carry us anyway.
Yep.
And he lent it to me. I paid him interest, paid him back in 6 months, and we've been healthy ever since.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Do you give it much thought, that phone call? How it just triggered that opportunity?
All that stuff. Since in the last, that happens to me almost all the time. Where something I need, it's like coming from business, right? In business, you think, oh, I have to work harder. I have to figure it out. When sometimes you just have to let it go, and the answer's already there. Whatever you need is probably there. You're so busy ruminating, you're not paying attention. And so it's like every year I get anxious, or twice a year when we do the staff thing, it's important to me. So I really want to I lead a session. This time we did exit, and then we did one session with exit and one with me, and we flipped. We had 2 groups. And it's always important to me that they get something and that we connect and something happens. And this time I was away most of March, got back, and I was like, oh, it's not coming to me. I don't know what we're going to talk about. And I was like, it's the day before, and I took my management team aside. I said, here's what I'm thinking. And I started going, and they go, what about this? What about this? I said, that's perfect. I'm like, but just not to panic.
Yeah.
Because it'll work itself out.
When you start navigating life and business that way, how do you trust it? Do you trust it implicitly? Like this is
100%.
And
when we were screwed at the Oasis before I bought out my partners, you know what we would do? Meditate. We would have a management meeting and we'd do crystal bowls and not talk about business at all. That doesn't mean you don't have to do stuff and figure it out. Yeah. But sometimes things are just working through and it's just get out of the way. You know what? Even the idea to buy out my partners, I thought, why would they sell? It was their baby. Mm-hmm. How gracious of them to be willing to take an offer. Yeah. So that the whole thing could go on. So somehow it's all there and it all kind of works out. And we've had lots of that in our life. Bo Shannon and I, and with our family, same idea where I can tell you another 20 stories of stuff, serendipity. And it feels amazing. I can't believe it.
And do you think at the root of it is you have to be open to seeing it? Like if you, because the reason I'm on you because I feel the same way. All of a sudden these opportunities start happening, but it's not a fluke. There's work. There's a lot of work behind everything. But for whatever reason, they do start happening. And like you said, when you can get out of the way, things happen.
Yeah. Well, one of my facilitators, coaches, he has a tattoo here. It says, let go. Cause he's a big golfer. And it's just, it is sometimes just trusting that somehow it's all meant to be. You know what? I had a business. We built the biggest spa in Canada in Toronto, and it blew up on us. We spent way too much money, spent $6 million, voted the best spa in Canada 3 times, and lasted 8 months. And you know what? I am certain that's exactly how it was meant to play out.
Right.
Because that was what I needed to get to the next place. Like a swift kick in the nuts and off you go, right? And figure that one out. That's that'll put you up against your stuff.
And I'm glad you brought that up because somebody that's listening to this is listening to you and I being like, just trust it, go with it. but there's real, that's a tough one to go through. Big numbers and
so that one was gut wrenching, and there was a chance it would take Calgary down with it, and our house and everything. It just brought me back to when my dad went bankrupt.
You could see what
it was all the same.
Wow.
And then I was mad at my brothers for putting my dad in that situation, and then I was in Toronto as this was going on, and I realized how horrified and terrified and nauseous I just couldn't feel worse.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't imagine my brothers went through this, and dad died in the process, and they got walked out of their houses. So I phoned them right away and just said, whoa, I'm sorry, man. I was mad at you. I just always have held a resentment for all of that. And I had no idea how unthinkable it would be for you to go through with your family. I can't imagine. And for me, so that one sounds like the big mother load, but the real mother load was my wife and I. When we got married, we got pregnant pretty quick, and we lost our son at 20 some weeks, and that one leaves you splayed open and incapable of functioning. And long story, I'm not even making a long story short, but we had been married the September before, and we were out with friends. We said, we should go golfing next year for our anniversary. We should get some people together and celebrate it and do something nice like that. And our son died on May 29th, and by September 15th, we had our first Smed golf tournament, sold out with 156 people, raising money for families who lose children.
No way.
And we built rooms in all the hospitals in Calgary and for families suffering a loss. And
Amazing.
since adopted 2 children. And I believe in all of my heart that our son laid his life down for us to learn that.
Yep. The hardest
It's Shannon and I are both, she's a very successful businesswoman, and we're both very capable, and we couldn't function. And our friend showed up, and it was the first time in our lives where we let people help us. And our life has never been the same. We now have this community of people around us that were always there. We just never thought we needed them.
Yeah. And now it's on a way different level.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So all those things, right? It's the best, not the best, the most valuable lessons in life are typically not that pretty.
Yeah. And then
my experience.
And how do you, knowing that, how do you get through it? Knowing that the hardest lessons are the most difficult times.
Well, guess what? That's my superpower. Shannon will tell you, we've never been closer than when we lost our son. So I've seen families ripped apart by it. We've had people show up at the tournament just because they can't deal with it. And they haven't. Maybe it was 10 years ago. We stayed in it. So don't run away from it if you feel miserable. And we grieved for most of the first 5 years of the tournament. And then on the 5th year, it was down at Cottonwood every year. We took our son's ashes and we put them in the creek down there. And it just felt like at some point you got to move on. Doesn't mean we're forgetting him or his life's less significant. He now had a golf tournament and branded logos and all kinds of stuff. So, and these rooms in all the hospitals. But for us, it was like, okay, grieving's important, and now it's time. And that was pretty raw. Leaving him there. It felt like leaving him there. And now I don't think of that situation as really sad. I think of it as just maybe miraculous that somehow that all happened for a reason.
Sure.
And that's why I trust my gut, because everything seems to work out like that when I finally pay attention.
And it's just like when you trust it and you know that the downs are going to be the down, but when you trust it and know that, like, can you see what's going to come? Do you know that just trust yourself that you're going to end up on the right spot?
The other side it is so worth it. Like, it's when you finally overcome something, or you maybe finally connect with something or someone, or doing this interview, you could come and do this and you could be nervous about it. Because when I was in business, it's like, okay, this is a task. I got to perform it. I got to do it right. And it's like, just cut yourself a little slack and trust that you're always good. You're always looked after. I mean, I certainly have an experience of God in my life, and that, but it's more an experience of that we're all kind of moving in a direction. We're not in as much control of it as we like to think. And if we let it take us and go with it the way it goes, it will take us to all these places that are super rich and fulfilling. And yeah, some of them are maybe super challenging, but that's, the idea of living sort of safe is no longer something I'm up to.
It's like two different lives.
It really is. It's cool that I'm good at business. So now I got to do a spa.
Now you're dangerous.
I'm a holistic spa. It's like, look, I can do both.
Yeah.
And people, you know what? You do have to, business, yeah, of course you have to pay attention. So it is kind of cool. And it's two lives. Like you said, sometimes I feel gypped. I would super be disappointed in myself if I put my daughters and my son through that. If I made them get on the program, neither of them wants anything to do with either of our businesses. And one of them just wants to be happy and enjoy life, happy to work, loves his car, loves tattoos. The other one loves rugby and might want to be a mechanic. Right?
Perfect.
And I realize we are the most liberal parents in the world. We literally don't get in any of that. And I'm proud. I'm glad. I'm glad I didn't invoke the sins of the father, right? Because I could have easily just kept it going.
Yep.
I've maybe broken the cycle for my family anyway.
Which is unbelievable.
Pretty cool accomplishment.
It's amazing. The spa right now.
Yeah.
Could you have ever guessed that you would have, been at this spot? 25 years in, the amount of people you've worked with, the team, like, could you ever have seen this playing out this way?
Well, I remember saying to my partners, because I think I negotiated poorly for myself in some ways. I said, if I could do this career. So for me, it was really important that my vocation and my avocation are the same. I wanted my career to be about something that is important and valuable and helpful, and like making furniture is super great, but helping people feel well or relax or maybe contemplate life is way more rewarding. And I said, if I could do that for 20 years and walk out with my money, I would take that deal 100 times out of 100. And now it's 25 years and I don't have to walk. And so, yeah, I guess, I like I said, it is almost like the Matrix, right? You're trying to break out of the mold and just do something that appears completely irrational and no one around you really gets. Like my family certainly was not cheering on because they're terrorized by it. I mean, if I do it, what if I do it and it works? Then they'll have to.
Then what?
Then they have to take inventory and go, well, maybe I could have done something different. I think in business sometimes it's too easy to say, well, I had to do this or I did this because that's what you need to do. There's usually a third path where it's like, yeah, you know what? You maybe need to fire that person. Maybe you don't. You need to fix the relationship or end it. But fixing the relationship is a bigger commitment than just letting them go. Yeah. And trying to find a place for people to be successful and then helping them do that. And if you help them, they will carry you. My business, I say I work 30 hours a week. I can assure you it works better when I'm not around. Even better.
That understanding like that you need to listen to people and work with them to get everyone going the same direction. Is it to be that open with them? Is it difficult? Like to run a business that way?
No, it's just sometimes you go, wait a minute, is this too personal or am I sharing too much? Right? It's like in the old days, you don't show your staff the numbers. But I mean, how do you expect someone to understand? It's like, oh, well, everyone wants a raise. I'm like, of course everyone wants a raise. So do I. But you can't just say, well, no, we're not going to give you a raise because the business can't afford it. You have to kind of dig into that a bit and go, what is that about? Yeah. They're not feeling rewarded. They're not feeling the value. We're not. Why aren't they feeling more successful? Why aren't they is there a way where we could work together so they could make, what is it? Do they want more money or do they just want more recognition? And then what can we do? Maybe we can, as a company, change things a bit and find a way where we can all win together. But if you're honestly going to tell your people that you're working with them and that you're partnering with them, my experience is most people say that and very few mean it.
Yeah.
So I get it. And if they're cynical and they need me to show them and prove it, you know what? That's reasonable, right? Unfortunately, all the people who have gone before me, some of them have not been great leaders and great bosses.
Yep.
And it wasn't clear that the boss was trying to help them be successful. Somehow that if they're not successful and your company is, that's kind of never a sustainable project. So if you can make your people successful, not just financially, but in their lives. Like I have all these long-term employees, I've watched them have children and buy a house and, build a life that's rich. And that's cool to be able to be part of that process. And so for them, the win in working with us is super clear. And that's our job. Our job is to show them that, yeah, if you want to follow, we can help. And, it's not for everybody.
No. But it's the right way.
It's the only way for me. And how lucky that I had all those years of neglect and working as a businessman so that I could actually understand that both models could coexist.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
It's amazing.
And then a chance to create it.
And it works.
And it works.
For years.
For years.
So cool. This has been one of the most spectacular conversations I've had. Before you got here, I was like, I didn't have a lot of energy. I was just having one of those days. I was like, I just don't have it today. This was next level. You got me, and I can't thank you enough.
I got lots of time to talk about things that are important to me. And it just feels like sometimes in Calgary, there's not a big audience. It feels like my wife comes from the oil and gas, that world and the big business world. And I think I still suffer from a fear of rejection. And probably because of my family and that, I think if I went downtown and told them this stuff, I'm not sure if everyone would be open to the message.
The leadership, it hasn't changed over yet
I don't know.
To be that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are. I've met some great leaders. I know some of Shannon's friends are awesome women, but they're doing the same thing. They're in their boardroom trying to get all these old guys to just consider the possibility. Yep. Right.
It's amazing. I end the show with one question.
Okay.
When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
Yeah, you know what? I would say, like I said earlier, what I love about it, I love how I think it's the sunshine and being able to be outside. I just got to be outdoors. I don't care if I'm playing a game or I throw frisbee. I do anything I can to get outside. And Calgary makes that so easy with the sunshine. I don't even mind 30 below. It works for me.
Blue skies and sun.
And there's always somebody who's willing to do it with you, right? You need people. I lived in Vancouver. Trust me, it's not like that. So I think I just love that I can get what I need and be part of that. I mean, really, we were up in Canmore on the weekend, and this is a pretty great setup we have here. Agreed. Just got to get out and find it.
Yep. Thanks again.
Thank you.
I'm so glad the Clausens hooked this up because this was, like I said, this was a special one. So I appreciate your time.
Oh, I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.